Hi, thank you for coming to my talk. Organizer introduced me. So I came from London, UK. I work as a data scientist for a startup. And I came here to give a talk about Russian troll tweets. So I'll give some background on my talk. As we all know, social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, exploded in popularity, and they give a great option to people to connect and to interact with each other. However, social media platforms also provide a forum for agenda building, so pushing your own issues to be the issues of policymakers. And also, we are all aware of different kinds. We are all aware of other different propagation of false and harmful information. For example, trolling, where usually people troll women, gender minorities, LGBTQ community, other people that have some kind of, that not fit into the social standards. Also hate speech. All these groups are targeted with hate speech. And of course, in recent years, we have explosion of fake news. Fake news as a phenomena is not new. However, in the recent time, it has become the main issue, where even politicians are allowed to publish ads where they can basically say what they want, and Facebook will allow it. Researchers are trying to not to use the term fake news, and according to information disorder framework, they usually classify fake news into misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. So misinformation is when false information is shared without intent. So you get some link, you think it's okay, and it's true what it says, and you share it to your friends without any intentions to spread it. The actual false information. Then we have disinformation, where people intentionally share false news, and malinformation, when true information is shared in order to harm someone. For example, that would be hate speech. Next slide shows some background to the data set and the talk. So from Russia with Troll. In January 2017, United States Office of the Director of National Intelligence published the classified report. There is also classified version, which is not in public domain. And the report gives a background to assessing Russian activities and intentions in US elections. Particularly, it gives assessment of the extent and basis of Russia's interference in United States elections in 2016. And the report examines the utilization of online space for hacking and the use of internet trolls and bots and media campaign to influence public opinion in the US. Next year, in February 2018, US Justice Department charged 13 Russian nationals and 3 entities with interfering in American electoral and political process. According to the official report and also news reports, defendants worked for the Internet Research Agency or Troll Factory in St. Petersburg in Russia. Basically, Internet Research Agency conducts online operations on behalf of Russian business and political interests. Now that we mentioned trolls and bots, I'll give some definitions. Online trolls are predominantly human or semi-automated user accounts that behave in deceptive, destructive, and or disruptive manner in the social settings on the internet, according to Buckles. While social bots are also predominantly automated systems that pose as humans and seek to influence human communications and manipulate public opinion. There is also one category between fully automated and human bot, because some companies might use bots for their marketing purposes. So that would be cyborg, which are kind of curated by humans but send a lot of automated messages. And the characteristics of the bots is actually that they send a lot of messages, although some humans tweet a lot as well. Trump sent 105 tweets on Saturday, so yeah, I don't know if that's automated or... the activity of trolls and bots, it's not mutually exclusive, and researchers found researchers on Russian influence, interference uncovered that actually both bots and the trolls were used across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and Google as well. Their intention is to weaponize social media, propagate state-sponsored propaganda, and destabilize foreign politics. For this talk, I have been looking into the Russian troll tweets dataset. It has 3 million tweets, just under 3 million, 2,980 something tweets. And these are the tweets associated with the Internet Research Agency Twitter handles. There were 2,848 Twitter handles. Data collection and initial research was done by Linville and Warren from Clemson University in South Carolina. What they did is when the US National Intelligence released the assessment report, they took notice of the Twitter handles that were published and then collected the data on these handles and published the paper Troll Factories, the Internet Research Agency and State-Sponsored Agenda Building. Dataset was made available last year by FiveThirtyEight website, and it is open data. This is how one researcher commented on the release of the dataset. And I will be talking with regards to this dataset on the troll accounts, different categories and their agendas, what kind of information they disseminated, and we'll have a look at the timeline of their activity. And at the end, I'll give some details on importance of this research and challenges for those involved in this research. So this is how the data frame looks. We are all familiar with data frames and Python and everything. So it doesn't have a lot of variables. It has author, content, region, language, published date, harvested date, following, followers, updates, account type, account category. It doesn't give, for example, account's bio, from where we might get more information. Also, it doesn't give latitude or longitude. It has a region, but that is not, we cannot really rely on that because a lot of accounts have regions as unknown, and we are not quite sure if they are actually the places where they tweeted from. Tweets also used a lot of languages. I haven't got the graph here, but one of the most prominent languages was Russian, for example. But also German, Polish, Spanish, over 30 languages, 30 different languages. The trolls itself, they were categorized into 8 different categories. Right troll, left troll, newsfeed, HashtagGamer, Fearmonger, and also we have some other categories like commercial, non-English, and unknown. However, for the purposes of this analysis, I have concentrated on the 5 main categories because some data on the other categories, obviously non-English, it might be analyzed with some NLTK libraries, with other languages, but this is only like focus on the main categories. And here you can see the distribution. There is quite a lot of non-English tweets. So for example, one might say, how can a message written on Serbian or Polish be relevant to Americans? But I guess it just contributes to the amplification of the message and to sharing. And for example, if it's a Spanish language, we have a big part of US where people speak Spanish, so that's why it might be relevant for that reason. These accounts, they tweeted in different way. So each category, or almost each category, stick to their own agenda. So for example, I have concentrated on the 5 categories, and we'll have a look at each one of them. Right trolls, they mostly posted nativist and right-leaning populist messages. So nativist is like propagating to people who are native inhabitants of the US, not somebody who has become naturalized. They used hashtags common to the real Twitter users. So we have Make America Great Again, Top Conservatives on Twitter, Patriot Journalist Network, Christian Conservatives on Twitter, or Red Nation Rising. These accounts followed all major accounts that are associated with the Republicans, and also supported Donald Trump, his candidacy and his presidency later on. What is quite interesting is that these tweets don't talk about traditional Republican themes such as abortion, tax, or regulation. They also posted divisive messages about moderate and mainstream Republicans. So yeah, this is what the main hashtags associated with right trolls are. You can see MAGA, PJ Netiquette, etc. Left trolls, on the other hand, they posted socially liberal messages with focus on cultural and racial identity. They tweeted a lot about Black Lives Matter, Black Twitter, and in a way, tweeted to mimic the Black Lives Matter movement. They also talked about, for example, Ferguson shootings and other similar events in the US. Just like right trolls send divisive messages aimed at prominent Republicans, left trolls also sent such messages aimed at prominent Democrats. So a lot of tweets about Hillary Clinton to undermine her, and also rumors about her campaign. So yeah, you can see here a lot of hashtags. Apart from the ones that I mentioned, there were quite a lot of hashtags with rap music, hip hop. So they kind of researched well what to incorporate within these accounts. And this is how it looks in word cloud. Now, there is another category, NewsFeed Troll. They presented themselves as US local news aggregators, and they had handles to reflect like local area, Seattle Post, Today Pittsburgh, etc. They posted links to legitimate news sources and tweeted about issues of local interest and world news. So, for example, something about some video shows Arizona officer crush cruiser into suspect, about US Democrat Pelosi. So yeah, they only tweeted some kind of news. HashtagGamer, these handles, they were involved entirely in playing hashtag games on Twitter. This is just like a word game played on Twitter where uses other hashtag to tweet and then answered some question. However, they also posted some socially divisive messages, and tweets shared can be seen both in the tweets shared also reflected the themes of those right troll and left troll categories. So yeah, this is just like some kind of an example of HashtagGamer hashtags. And the last one is, among those 5, is a Fearmonger Troll. They spread news of a fabricated event, particularly that that salmonella contaminated turkeys were produced by Cock Foods, US poultry producer, near the 2015 Thanksgiving holiday. And the tweets mostly focused on, mostly described how individuals got poisoned by purchasing turkeys from Walmart. And the story was debunked and indicated as era fabrication. In the difference to other accounts, Fearmonger Trolls switched between categories, so they would tweet different themes, while other categories, they just stick to their own topic. So here, that would be cluster 4. This is basically dimensionality reduction with the UMAP Python library, which was released last year, and it's similar to TSNE. So here we can see clusters of the tweets, and I'm sorry the picture is not bigger, but yeah, you can see how categories are nicely clustered, although we can also see just some bits interfering into different categories. their content. As for the timeline activity, we can see that the first tweet was posted quite a few years before the election in February 2012, and the last tweets were posted at the last day of May 2018. This is basically when Twitter disabled these accounts. And there are some days when accounts were, when a lot of tweets appeared and reached quite a few peaks during the whole timeline. So this is visualized with ggplot and geom in R, and it shows basically a calendar plot where you can see how at the beginning in 2012, for example, we don't have in January any tweets as they started in February. On some days, they weren't even active, but they were kind of present throughout the year from time to time. Let's say make a break and then go again. The same goes for 2013 and 14, although towards the end of 2014, we have kind of daily activity, especially in December. You can see that they are active every day. And from the beginning of 2015, you can see how the activity increases and kind of gets in 2016, election year, and year after, it's actually quite frequent. And also you can notice some days when the activity is really high. In 2018, they basically go to the levels of pre-2015 until end of May when they were deactivated. So this is basically another way of showing this, and we can see some peaks. So I looked at the particular dates to see if we can relate some world events to these peaks. And here we are. So we have one quite significant peak in April 2016. This happens after the event when DNC, Democratic National Committee, was basically chairman's account got hacked, and Russians got hold of the Gmail account details and all the content, obviously. So it is kind of quite significant peak afterwards. Then we have like a usual activity kind of getting a bit low in July of 2016, and after the Republican convention where Trump won the presidential nomination, these tweets are gradually building, so you can see how the frequency increases. And there is the biggest peak in October 2016, here indicated with green color. This is when WikiLeaks, who were forwarded the data, started actually publishing Podesta's emails. And throughout this process, this remains the highest, the day with the highest activity, and it's, the tweets almost started in a matter of hours. And then we have obviously presidential election, Trump wins, and kind of quite active tweets after that. This is also activity for the of the accounts for the hour of the day. So we can see that within a 24 window, they were mostly active in the afternoon and night. So after 8 o'clock, that would be, for example, West Coast USA. People are, it's morning, so tweets mostly were posted in the afternoon and late evening, actually to coincide with the US time. And if we look at the hour of the week, then the activity is kind of bigger towards the end of the week and in later hours as well. So this is what I talked about is mostly related to US. However, some activity was found beyond US. So there is some activity related to Canada. One journalist identified 8,000 tweets targeted at Canada, where they talked about refugees, asylum seekers, border issue, things like that. Also in the UK, where trolls targeted MPs, Jeremy Corbyn, Theresa May, John McDonnell, and Boris Johnson. Although here campaign was focused more on controversy than on policy of these two parties, Labour and Conservatives. Some tweets were active in Italy to support populist positions, as well as in Spain and Israel. So talking about all of this and seeing how it can, how this campaign was state organized and coordinated on a big scale, we can see that we can say that there are quite few implications for societies, for Western societies as well for other any society in the world. And the main issue is with interfering in democratic processes, affecting public opinion, sowing discord, and propagating falsehoods and harmful information. Researchers are quite active in this area in the last few years, and they employ different methods to tackle the problem, because it is a big problem. Some methods include engineering a large number of features from the content and using supervised machine learning models to detect if a Twitter account exhibits similarity to the known characteristics of social bots. There is a lot of research, for example, previously published on deception, which can be applied in some areas to this problem as well. Some research focuses on semantic analysis of content, sequence analysis, for example, measuring the similarities between the sequence of text generated over time against the reference set. Also social sequence analysis as a way to measure digital identity. I guess quite important is also to quantify this online influence, because content gets shared, messages get amplified, and they reach wide audience. So there was one research recently which applied hoax processes to measure online influence of the Twitter Trolls dataset. Not this one, but the one released recently by Twitter, 10 million tweets. And they measured online influence links shared from this data set on across Reddit and other platforms. And obviously, with such a problem, there are a lot of challenges. Different types of trolls and bots and the role they play make it difficult to differentiate between them and understand their strategy. So as any software agents, they can have different strategies and change their behavior and their role according to their creators. Also, language itself is constantly evolving, and spoken word, every year we have some new words added to the dictionary, so languages everywhere are evolving. So that might call for retraining of the algorithm models. And of course, bots are evolving too. They are using more sophisticated language. It's difficult to distinguish between automated and human narrative. And also they are, if they are employed for propaganda, the experience shows that they simulate multiple political ideologies. Another challenge is that classifiers may work on one set of accounts and may perform well, but then they wouldn't perform well on another set of accounts because they change their behavior over time. Other big problem is that state-sponsored trolls have influence on fringe communities, such as 4chan, especially Polboard, Gab community as well, because the experience shows that content posted by such accounts resonate with communities there. And the shooting at the synagogue in the US last year, well, it apparently the shooter had he got his ideology from being an active member of Gab. Another quite important challenge is lack of open data sets, because sometimes researchers are reluctant to share the data. Obviously, Facebook has restriction on its data unless you do some research with them. Twitter is kind of quite still quite open for people to research data, but they are putting some restrictions as well. So yeah, lack of open data sets is a problem as well. Recently, some data sets were released by Twitter. So they released state-sponsored trolls data sets from Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. And another interesting data set is data set that was used during the protests in Hong Kong, which was released quite recently. So with this, I would say that it's a big problem. There are a lot of challenges, and I would like to thank you for having me.
Thank you for your presentation. We got time for one question, if someone has one. Oh.
Hi. So my question is, do you have any particular reason for selecting this topic? Is it your personal interest, or is it connected to your job? You said you work in London, so, and you showed us the data about US. So is it your personal interest, or is it like connected to your work?
It's not connected to my work. I like NLP, but unfortunately I don't do a lot of work at my job. I think that we should all be quite adamant in recognizing fake news, all kind of misinformation, because it affects almost everybody. It's not just for political reasons. We have a lot of examples, for example, where people create closed groups on Facebook, propagate misinformation, disinformation about vaccines. So in the last year, 2 years, we have, you know, like a lot of people are dying because they don't want to be vaccinated, just because there is a lot of messages that say that vaccines are not safe. So yeah, that is obviously quite important. And for society as a whole, I guess that is important in a way that we shouldn't rely on opinion, but on facts. And you know, just like not to fall for any kind of discord. And yeah, I like working with text data and see how such actions affect the societies. I guess I answered your question.
Okay. Thank you once again.